welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and this video is going to kick off a Kickstarter preview on the channel, as you have already seen during the intro for Final Girl. This comes from Ryder Games and is currently, as of this recording and as of the publishing of this video, on Kickstarter for you to check out in more detail. Now, this particular game comes in a number of different feature films, as it definitely leans itself towards the horror genre. It's got the slasher feel, it's got the poltergeist feel in these two feature film boxes you're seeing right here. Another thing to mention is that everything you see in this Kickstarter preview series is in prototype form, so the final components as well as the cards and the rules are all subject to change. One other thing that's worth mentioning is the fact I am being compensated for my time with this Kickstarter preview series. I really hope this helps you make an informed decision on whether or not you want to pick up Final Girl. So without further ado, the purpose of this video is going to be how to set the game up. We're going to focus on that solely, and then in the follow-up video, we are going to move into a playthrough. So without further ado, let's set up Final Girl. The first step of setup is to choose a killer and a location from the feature films you have available to you. So again, depending on which feature films you pick up during the Kickstarter, you'll have more to mix and match. We have Hans here as one of the killers, and we have the poltergeist as another. These are just two of the killers available, and I'm going to choose Hans for this upcoming playthrough. Next, we need to choose our Final Girl, and I have four available to me from the prototype here. We have Lori, Rico, Alice, and finally Selena. And I'm going to go ahead and choose to use Selena. Instead of just picking the Final Girl you'd like to use, you can also choose randomly. The next step is to find the player board, place it on the table as you can see, then grab your Final Girl card. Ensure that you have the side facing up that shows the 6 victim saved spaces. Your Final Girl is then placed in the Final Girl position. It's important to remember to keep space on the left-hand side of the player board and the right-hand side of the player board for cards. Next, find and take out the 6 custom dice out of the core box and place them next to the player board. Next, go through all the action cards that you have and find the cards which have a golden hourglass that states 0 beside it in the bottom right-hand corner. There should be 6 cards in total. This is going to be your starting hand. Next, sort the remaining action cards into respective piles by name and place them in the tableau. Some piles will have 2 cards and some piles will only have 1. To make this easier in terms of remembering that, the top row has a single card and the bottom row has 2 cards of each. Next, you're going to place the killer board that you selected earlier on onto the table and the location board directly to the right of it. The killer board will sit directly above the player board, and as I mentioned, the location board will sit to the right of the killer board. Next, find and shuffle the killer's finale cards. They will look like the top and bottom half of the killer. You can see right here, finale, and there is a watermarked area where these cards are going to reside, a top portion and a dark portion. The top is the finale, the bottom is the dark power. So in this prototype, I have 3 of the top finale, so I'm going to go ahead and shuffle these 3 and place 1 here. Next, after that, I will take the dark power deck, which is for the lower half of the killer, shuffle these and place 1 here. Again, not looking at either of the cards I placed there. And just like that, the finale card and the dark power card are set up on the killer's board. The remaining finale and dark power cards can go back to the box. The next step is to find the terror cards that are specific to the killer you're using, as well as the terror cards that are specific to the location that you're going to use. You're going to shuffle these cards together and draw 10 out to form the terror deck. The rest of those cards, keep them within reach. You might be called upon them in order to bring them into your current playthrough at some point in time. Don't return them to the box just yet. Place the 10 cards without looking at them that you pulled from the terror deck and place them to the right of the location board. Whether creating the terror deck or tearing it down after a playthrough to organize it, you can always reference the icon in the bottom right hand corner and it will relate or correspond to either the killer or the location. As you can see with Camp Happy Trails, we've got a tent icon, and for the killer, we have a pig icon. The next step is to find the location's item cards. Again, using that icon in the bottom right-hand corner of the item card deck, you'll be able to determine which item cards belong to the location you've chosen. I've got all the item cards with the tent icon. I'm going to shuffle this deck. Then I'm going to distribute 4 cards across the top 3 sections here: cabins, dock, and utility shed. And then I'm going to flip the top card of each of those decks face up. I've gone ahead and placed 4 cards at each location, flipped over the top card. At the cabins, we have a whistle. At the dock, we have a first aid kit. And at the utility shed, we have a knife. You can then place the remaining item cards back in the box. Next, find the location's setup cards and go ahead and randomly select one. This is going to help us to determine how to set up the location we've chosen. Once you've randomly selected a setup card, go ahead and flip it face up and slot it above the setup position on the location board. Now we're going to go ahead and follow the instructions on the setup card to determine where to put victims, the final girl, and the killer. The final girl has an icon in a gold or yellowish hue that represents a female. We also have the killer represented with a K, and then we simply have numbers representing how many victims are at current locations around Camp Happy Trails. After following the setup card, we currently have 2 victims up here at Makeout Point. We have 1 down here just in front of the lake. We have another down here close to the dock area. This particular token was not represented on the setup card. This is to streamline in situations where there are a number of meeples or victims greater than the space can possibly contain. You'll see how that's organized in a second. The other 2 markers on this are a black one representing Hans and a red one representing Selena. Now this setup card is called the Bonfire for a reason. There is a large group of individuals at the fire pit slot. So we currently have a token here which represents a large group of individuals at that fire pit, a total of 6 of them. Next, find and shuffle the location event cards, place them face down next to the location board on the right-hand side, draw the top one, and follow any instructions as it may impact setup, such as adding additional victims to the location. Secret Tunnel is our starting event. It says the utility shed and the cabin are adjacent to one another. Both of those locations currently house items that we can potentially search and acquire there. At the utility shed, we have a knife, and at the cabin, we have a whistle. Only 1 victim can follow you through this tunnel, regardless of any items or abilities you may have. The killer cannot use the tunnel, so this is an advantage for just the final girl. This next step is very important, that you do not look at the underside of these 9 large final health markers. Ensure that when you gather these, that the only side you see are these markers right here. Randomly shuffle them around if you have seen the bottoms of them until you are unaware of what's underneath. You're going to select one of these as the final health chip for your killer as well as final girl. So I'm going to take one here for Hans and put it into this slot right here, and another one here for final girl. This is going to be potentially either a saving grace for final girl, meaning there might be some health at the very end of her life and she has the ability to get back up again thematically and try and fight back, or even worse, Hans could come back from being killed. Of course, there's also the chance that both of those things could happen. The rest of the tokens that were unused can go back to the box. The next step is to set up the health for your killer as well as final girl. For Hans here, his health is listed up here at 12 hearts, but you also have to take into account one of those hearts is represented by the final heart right here. So we'll be grabbing 11 other regular heart tokens to lay down on the left-hand side of his board. So in total, including his final heart, he'll have 12. So Hans, now with the normal health markers and the final health marker, has a total of 12 health. And the exact same setup can be used with Selena or your final girl. You'll see the representation of how much life or health Selena has, or whichever final girl you choose. In this case, she has 6. So including the final health token she has, 5 additional regular health tokens. Next, we're going to place the Bloodlust token on the column for Bloodlust, and it will sit right here. Next, we're going to take the time marker and place it on the time track at the 6th position. And last but not least, we're going to place a killer marker on the horror track of the player board based on the horror level of the particular killer we've chosen. For Hans, we can see that horror level starts at 4. So the horror level will sit at 4 using this marker. And that's going to conclude the setup for Final Girl. I hope that this video will help you get the game to the table in the quickest amount of time in the future when the game delivers. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope to see you in the upcoming playthrough. And as always, keep on rolling solo.